all the participants today for this webinar. First, I would like to welcome our Director Ma'am, Professor Chandran Rekha Jatti. Next, I would like to welcome our HOD Ma'am, Dr. Gayatri Aditya, to this webinar. I welcome you, ma'am. Now, I would like to welcome all the faculties as a part of this webinar. Now, I would like to welcome the speakers Nidhi, Harshini, and Evangeline to share their knowledge about poor housing for urban. Welcome, you guys.
Thanks, Rachna.
Ma'am, can I start sharing my screen?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I hope my screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, Nidhi.
Okay. So good morning all. Myself Nidhi. And my teammates are Evangeline, Sandhya and Harshini. So today we'll be presenting a small learning on what we learned in housing for urban poor. So we attended a small internship, which was for a duration of 3 months. So before starting the presentation, we'd like to express our gratitude to Ms. Sangeeta and Mr. Subramaniam, who were our internship guides, who are corely responsible for whatever we have learned and whatever we are going to be presenting today. We had also won the NOSPLAN competition because of them, because of their guidance, whose learnings have again been put into this particular presentation. So, before going into presentation, I'd like Evangeline Sandhya to explain what exactly urban poor is and why housing for urban poor is necessary. Sandhya, could you please take over?
Yes. Can you go to the next slide, Nidhi?
I'm in the third slide. Is my third slide visible?
No.
Okay, 1 second. Yeah, now is it visible?
Yes. So good morning all. So what is urban poverty and what is urban poor and why housing is necessary for urban poor? So what is urban poverty is? It is a form of poverty which is quite visible in all the mega cities. So we can see it in all the major metropolitan cities, which is characterized with substandard living conditions and income along with deficit provisions of basic amenities and low quality of life. So basically the informal sector and slums that we see in city, uh, they are categorized as the urban poor. So in terms of housing, it's not having a tenure security and legal titles to property made households extremely vulnerable in times of crisis. Not only did they have incentives to upgrade their homes, but also were unable to productively generate rent or income from their property. So one of the major one of the major problems for urban poor is even first thing, they don't have any legal titles for their properties. Another one, they don't have property. And even in this COVID situation, you can see that the major people who are affected were the EWS and the LIG and the middle income range, and the most vulnerable were the EWS and the LIG, so that they were not able to pay their rent. So that you can see a lot of out migration and reverse migration which happened because of this. And not only they don't have even that basic income so that they can upgrade their homes, and they're not able to generate any rent or income from their properties because they don't have a proper income for that. And urban poverty in Indian scenario is over 25%, and 81 million people in urban areas, they belong to the urban to the below poverty line. And the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Elevation in 2012 estimated that the EWS and the LIG households, they account for about 95% of total housing shortage in India. So, uh, so for this, what the government has taken initiatives are one of the major initiatives that the government has taken is the PMAY scheme, which was introduced by Pradhan Mantri uh, Narendra Modi ji sir, and which was launched in 25th June 2015. And the main objective of the scheme is to provide every citizen of India with a pakka house with water connection, toilet facilities, and electricity supply and access by the year 2022. The mission seeks to address the housing requirement for urban poor, including the slum dwellers, through four verticals, in a way that all the subsets of the urban poor are covered. So there are different subsets of urban poor, and the mission seeks to cover all the four subsets. Nidhi, can you take over?
Yeah. So I'll be explaining about what are the four different subsets. The first one is slum redevelopment. Now this again has two divisions in it. The first one is in situ slum redevelopment, where we are going to develop whatever is within the given slums geographic area. And in this, there will be some private participation which provides extra FSI or FAR and TDR, and there will be a grant of rupees 1 lakh per house that will be given by the government of India. Then apart from this, there's another division that is relocation and rehabilitation. This happens when it is not possible to develop the housing within the slum area, and a greenfield development will be taking place. We'll be discussing about this in further in one of our site studies. So moving on to our second vertical, it is affordable housing through credit link subsidy. Affordable housing here, the subsidy for EWS and LIG for new house or incremental housing will be given. Recently, even MIG has been added into this particular category, where the MIG group is again divided into MIG 1 and MIG 2, whose income brackets are 12 lakh and 12 to 15 lakh. So 6 lakh to 12 lakh and 12 to 18 lakh, sorry. And the upfront subsidy will be 6.5% for EWS and LIG, and loans up to 6 lakhs will be availed. The third vertical we'll be going into is affordable housing in partnership, where this is just like a public-private partnership, where a private sector will be, if there is a housing society that is being developed, some portion of this housing will be given to the EWS and LIG category. So the percentage of the houses that will be given is 35%, and this will be again done with the help of central assistance with 1.5 lakh per EWS house in the project. Moving on to the final vertical, it is subsidy for beneficiary-led housing. This is for individuals of EWS category. They have two options: either they can enhance whatever the housing they have, or they can avail for a completely new house. So in this, what we observed was they will be given 6 particular house designs, and the beneficiary has the choice to choose any one housing design, and can monitor the process of housing construction of housing. So the main difference between the affordable housing in partnership and beneficiary-led housing is, in affordable housing partnership, the builder gets to decide what kind of house is to be provided. Whereas in beneficiary-led housing, the beneficiary gets to decide what kind of house he wants to live in. Moving on to the next slide. This speaks about what are the highlights and what are the approaches that we have covered that the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana has covered. The first one is inclusive, participatory, sustainable, innovative, partnership with private and other stakeholders. So these are some small highlights of PMAY. And to exactly know why PMAY was started, initially it was the mandate was initially for housing needs of all urban poor and was restricted to only slum dwellers. Later, government of Karnataka, in response to PMAY, had launched a Karnataka affordable housing policy in 2016. So this policy again had 7 models of housing, which again were typically the subsets of the 4 verticals that we have seen. It falls in similar lines, and also the PMAY had this program was introduced because there were some estimates that were made by the government, and there was a annual compound rate of 3%. That was the estimated population increase. So this means that 15 lakh households may join the urban area by 2022, and out of these 15 lakh, more than 50 to 60% was BPL, EWS, and LIG. So this was the housing need within the state, and it also emphasizes special. It also has special emphasis on housing for construction workers, industrial workers, high shelter for homeless and pavement dwellers, as well as rental housing for comprehensive and holistic impact on the housing shortage. The GOK also came up with the slum development policy that calls for the land rights on the slum households and for in situ upgradation, slum upgradation. So we went ahead with a small case study on Hanumantanagara. This was a site visit that we did during our internship. I'd like Sandhya to take over with the methodology of our study.
Yes. So the main aim
Before
of
that, just if you can go back to, so if you just go back to the slide, the 4 verticals.
Yes, ma'am.
So here you are trying to, you told the difference between housing in partnership and beneficiary led. So is it like the full amount is paid by the government, or is it like some portion
No.
has to be paid by the beneficiary or the user?
No, ma'am. Here, in the central assistance, 1.5 lakh per household will be given. According to the calculations, each household will take 6 lakh for the cost of construction, and out of the 6 lakh, a grant of 1.5 lakh will be given by the central government. The state government also gives some grants based on the there are different criteria. One is caste. If they're ST, they will get 2.8 from the GOK, or if they're from a different caste, there are some proportions that have been distributed. If you're from a general category, there will be some proportion of money given. But however, the beneficiary from his side can avail for a loan in the central nodal agencies, or there are banks or self-help groups. He or she can avail for a loan, and he can give his part of the share from that loan he's availing.
Okay.
Not completely. It's not 100% subsidy, ma'am. There is some share of beneficiary here.
Beneficiary. Thank you.
So the main aim was holistic and people-centric development of the slum, and there were 2 major objectives, that is providing quality housing with a wholesome approach in developing the habitat, and the second objective was creating local economic development for an upgradation and livelihood of slum dwellers. So for this, we have taken the city context about Ramnagara City Municipal Council, and slum selection and slum profile and existing schemes for housing in slum, and the case study of basic services for urban poor both in Thane and Maharashtra, and what are the proposals for slums and some suggestive policies and interventions.
So the aim that we took for this particular study was holistic and people-centric development of the slum. The first objective, as mentioned, is providing quality housing with the wholesome approach of developing the habitat as a whole, and not only an individual household. And objective 2 is creating local economic development for an upgradation of livelihood of the slum dwellers. So this image is an objective. This image is an approach that we have followed for this study. So the LED or local economic development is just for uplifting the economically weaker sections by giving them an opportunity to have their own businesses or small scale industries. And next one is AQI. Here AQI is access to quality infrastructure. So this again aims at giving basic quality facilities for the slum dwellers and a quality check on operation and maintenance of physical infrastructure in the slums. So what we learned from our side study is, even though the beneficiary is constructed has been given a completely constructed house, there is no maintenance of the surrounding infrastructure, and that is why we have come up with the access to quality infrastructure as one of our objectives. And the third one is a people-centered approach, and the under this, the end user's complete satisfaction with the final product, that is a developed habitat, fuels people's belief in housing projects in slum. So all these points will be explained in detail in the further slides, because we have a small case study, which is why we have come up with such aims and objectives. And another approach is participatory planning and community-oriented governance. There's also direct linkage between the government and the beneficiary and the user. So these were the two approaches we came up with. I'd like Harshini to take over the Ramnagara city profile.
So I'm explaining about the city profile of Ramnagara. So the slum we went to the site was Anumantnagara, which was in the Ramnagara CMC. Under 5 districts of Ramnagara, Ramnagara CMC was under Ramnagara Taluk. So it is located 50 kilometers from Bangalore, and it has a geographical the geographical area of that town is 12.39 square kilometer and population of 95,000. And coming to the slum profile, the slum has the area of 8,000 square meter. The ownership of that slum is private, and the total household in the particular slum is 287. Coming to the demography of the Ramnagara CMC, it has in Ramnagara CMC there is a 20% increase of population according to the decadal growth. And according to the Ramnagara Taluk, there is a decrease of 19% from 2001 to 2011. Next slide, Nidhi. So coming to the slum profile, basically what is tenability? Tenability is capable of being well maintained of those slums. So the slum we have chosen was tenable enough, and it has a household of 287 with the land ownership, that is the ownership of the land was private. It has around 2.17 acres, and the occupation, like 100% were labors. More than 96% were daily wage workers, and 4% was monthly earners. Average workers per household was 2, and 84% of household are rented. That the average rent paid was 2,180 rupees. Then the slum residence period to stay in the city, the majority of the people, that is 66% of people, stayed in the city more than 30 years. And the income distribution, the majority of the people had their income range from 5 to 10,000. Coming to the existing physical infrastructure of the slum, majority of the people, that is 60%, were using public tap. That they used to get daily once 1 hour. Then 24% was access to the individual connection outside the houses, which which were they getting alternative days for 2 hours, and 16% had individual connection within a house, which were they getting daily twice 1 hour. Coming to the toilets, 64% had open defecation. In that, 44% had individual toilets and 20% had connection to UDG. Coming to the solid waste disposal, 40% were door-to-door collection. In that, 80% in the 80% were collecting 3 days once, and 20% of them were collecting 2 days once. And 60% was self disposal. Next slide, Niti.
So these are the government schemes for housing. Now that we have studied the existing slum profile, we'll be going into what are the central government. Okay. So we'll be the reason why we're studying. My voice is echoing. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Nidhi.
Nidhi, I think you're on 2 devices. That's why it's echoing.
No, I'm only on one device now. Can anybody
Now
mute
it's not
themselves?
echoing.
Okay. So the reason why we are studying these central government schemes is now that we are aware of what is the existing situation of infrastructure in the slums, we need to know what are the schemes, and even though there are these many schemes, what are the
Nidhi?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
So are these different schemes, or are they verticals under the same scheme?
No, ma'am. This is about PMAY. These are the verticals. Below that, we are mentioning what are the schemes also, the state schemes. Yeah. So these are the verticals. Now we have already studied about what are the verticals under PMAY. Now there are other state schemes that come into picture. For example, the Urban Ashraya, which is again giving some grant for the general category and SC/ST. And we have B.R. Ambedkar Nivas Yojana, we have Devraj Aras scheme, and we have Namamane Yojana. Now, through this slide, we understand that there are many schemes that are coming into picture. Yet, there is still the scenario that we saw. There is still a lack of quality infrastructure in these slums. So, we have given when we went for a site study, we have noticed some changes or some. Through these pictures, we will know that the first image is a beneficiary's current house that she is living in, and the image here represents the new house that has been constructed. But the problem is, we can see that there is an open drain running near the house, and there are no internal access roads, and there is highly congested development. As you can see, the distance between one building and another is very less and not according to the standards. So what we noticed, the reasons behind this particular problem around the newly constructed houses. So PMAY focuses only on the individual house construction, but it requires an overall development of the slum. It has to focus on the surrounding infrastructure, and it also has to give it gives ownership status to all the beneficiaries. So giving land titles to everybody is a problem due to the shortage of land already in the ULBs. So this brings us to the conclusion that although there are so many schemes, it is not helping the slum, and thus there is a high need of convergence of multiple schemes. I'd like Harshini to just mention her experiences as she had questioned the beneficiaries during the site study. Harshini, could you please take over?
Yes, maybe. Basically, they had to pay some amount of money for getting their money from the government. So they had a problem of getting the money from the government. The delay of the money and the delay of the construction workers. So these are the major problems, and they were also facing the some beneficiary was getting two houses, and so these are the problems.
And I
Now,
yeah. Yeah, I just want to even say another major gap in the scheme was there is no like because the US there's like there are three contributions. One is this the central should provide grant, and the state should provide some contribution, and even the ULP is also who's implementing this the house construction also should provide some grant. So one of the major gaps of this scheme was, I'll just give a short story. What happened was there was a beneficiary who was under the BLC category. So they had land, but they were not able to construct the houses. So what was one of the problem is in BLC what was the issue is only if they demolish their house, and they have to the beneficiary from their side have to invest, and they have to build the foundation. So after they build the foundation and that location is geotagged, and then only it will go for processing for central and the state assistant. So what was the problem is, because of this, people who had their land, they had demolished their houses, and they didn't they some people, they don't have even that financial status that they can even construct even construct a foundation. So what they did, they're taken other loans from people, and because of that, that was one of the major problems. And after even demolishing and constructing and like putting the foundation, they had applied for the central and state assistance so that they can construct their houses. But what was the problem is, they never received any funds from the state government. So what problem we saw in Ramnagara was, for past 2 years they did not receive any central and state assistance. So because of that, people one is people have moved their before they were living in a dilapidated condition. They had a poor housing, but still they were living under in a house. But after this, what happened, they had demolished their own property, and they had gone for rented houses in some other place. So because of that, they had to pay even the loan amount, they had to even pay their own rents, and they're still waiting for central and state assistance. And one of the major problems where the ULBs also are not in, they don't have that capacity, they don't have that money, so that they can provide for housing sector, they can provide some assistance, uh, uh, some capital assistance. So that this was one of the major problems. And one lady, like we could still remember that she was requesting during that stakeholder consultation, she was literally requesting that please do something for us, because she was paying a loan amount every month for around 15,000, and she was a daily, she was a tailor, and what she could earn a day was nearly 200 or 300 rupees. So with that money, so she was really not able to pay the loan also. So because of paying the interest for the loan, she has to take another loan from somebody else, borrow money. So this is one of like because there's a gap in funding from the central and the state, the people, still the beneficiary, are facing a lot of issues. So this is one of the major gaps in this scheme. Yes.
Now I'll be explaining about basic service. We have taken a small case study as to show why we have given certain proposals. So this basic service for urban poor has this has been taken place in Thane, Maharashtra, by a city engineer, Mr. Anil Patil. So this is a small article that is written by our internship guide, Miss Sangeeta ma'am. So to go about what exactly has been given in the article, their main approach was first the identification of slums, criteria for selection of beneficiaries, process of community sensitization, process of allotment of houses, community facilitation for in situ redevelopment, and as well as giving this, they are also giving transit shelters and convergence of health, education, and social security benefits with housing delivery, bank linkages for payment of beneficiary contribution, and institutionalization of operation and maintenance. So this the geographical coverage was Mumbra Kausa, which was the relocation of Kalmanalla to Mumbra Kausa. So this was basically, there are some projects that were there were some projects that were taking place, and there were people that those were residing on in temporary shelters on footpaths. So Kalmanalla. So the people who were living in Kalmanalla were relocated to Mumbra Kausa and were living in completely dilapidated houses. And this also covered the MMRDA site in Tulsi Dham and the Mamta Phule Nagar. So uh, this these people were again relocated because of the road projects that were taking place. Due to the widening of roads, they were again told to move away from that place, but were not given any transit shelters, and that's the reason why there was a new slum that was created. And under this BSUP, this was the geographical coverage. And the highlight of the project was the housing project was a completely community driven, transparent, and socially driven project. So it covers three major dimensions. One is people and institutions and buildings. So this was the approach for the housing project. So this was carried out in three stages. The first stage was the community was all location. It was divided into 5 groups, and regular meetings were happening in the street corners by the commissioner, and there was crucial links between the municipal corporation and the dwellers. This is an important step in this process because there has to be trust between the dwellers and the municipal corporation. We'll be knowing why that trust is important as we go through. Dwellers agreed to demolish their own houses. Now, because of this trust between the dwellers and the municipal corporation, dwellers gave their own land, they demolished their own houses, and once this demolition of houses were made, the municipal corporation made sure that these beneficiaries are provided a transit shelter during the period of construction. So PIU and PMU, so this is basically management and the awareness of BSUP in this, sorry, this is the, basically this is the PR or the public relation team that was involved in spreading the awareness among the city about the BSUP. And the stage 2 was slum ranking with priorities. So what were the priorities were housing condition, infrastructural status, location, fund contribution. One is from the government and the beneficiaries under the GN and URM mandates. And this was, and the next one was land instruments, FSI and TDR. And the third stage was a biometric survey. So all the information was updated into softwares. Information here means the constructed households. Let's say there are 20 households. All the 20 households will be put into the software. And how the allotment of households happened is, it was a lottery system. And in this system, they had given a criteria for ground floor. If there are 4 units in the ground floor, the 4 units will be first given according to the lottery system to those who are not able to access the higher stage, like parallel people or paralyzed people or physically disabled people or old aged people. So this was the criteria that were given, and according to these priorities, they were given according to the lottery system by the software. And as mentioned before, transit shelters were made. So this was the choice to the dwellers. 1,500 rent will be borne by the municipal corporation during construction. If they wanted to go for rental housing, they can very well go with the rent provided by the municipal corporation. Or they can accommodate themselves in the transit shelters that were built for them within the site. And here are the pictures. This was the slum before it was developed under the BSUP. Towards the left, and towards the right is a completely built colony where even today these slum dwellers are residing in, and the operation and maintenance, security, safety, gardening, cleaning, and everything has been taken care by the residents themselves. And a special emphasis is smart cards. So this is for the collection of beneficiary contribution and being linked to the UID enabled beneficiaries to avail them with welfare programs for the urban poor. So this brings us to the end of the case study. Now we move on to the proposals of Ramnagara. I would like Sandhya to take over this, please.
Yes. So, one first proposal is government-led institute rehabilitation, and the criteria for selection of this proposal is because of scarcity of land available in Ramnagara CMC. So, what we can do is we can do institute redevelopment, and the approach is participatory planning and community-oriented governance, and it majorly focuses on vertical development rather than horizontal development of space. We can do vertical development, and there should be direct interaction between the implanting agency and the beneficiaries, so that the stakeholders should be consulted in all levels of planning and implementation. Then only there'll be efficient implementation uh, of institute slum redevelopment, and it should and it majorly focuses on grassroots level engagement from bottom up approach and shared consensus, and the implementation should take phase wise development. And for the pilot phase, the total number of households which is living in Hanumantanagara is 285. So for a pilot phase they can for a pilot phase 25 households could be taken with transit shelters during construction. So transit shelters is they have to the government itself should provide a transit shelter to accommodate the families, or else they have to provide rent, like during this transition period they have to provide rent for monthly basis for all the families, so that they can live in other accommodation. And the next one is local economic development. So we have to create an entrepreneurial zone within the planned site for for economic and occupational scope and choice, because the people who are being relocated, because it is a government land, it is actually far from the central city. It is in the like a peri-urban area, so that people have to commute to the main center. It takes a lot of time, so that if we provide an economic or an entrepreneur zone within the redevelopment site, then it would allow even people to work over there, and would improve their livelihood status. And government led relocation and rehabilitation, and the criteria for selection of this proposal is we have to land availability in the CMC and beneficiary willing for G+X floors, and the approach is participatory planning and community oriented governance, and its basic focus is basic infrastructure services. And the example is Kanakpura AHP project, which will be explained by Hashin.
This is the government led relocation and rehabilitation is basically for the beneficiary who has who do not have their own lands. So the even in the slums there will be no land availability. So the whole slum is relocated in the outskirts of the city, and the land and both land and house is built by the government. So when we went to the Kanakpura AHP housing project, they have built the houses in the rows with all the basic infrastructures like water supply, drainage, uh, in the outskirts of the city. There is if there is no land availability inside the slum, they relocate the whole slums in the outskirts of this is the basic idea of the relocation and rehabilitation of the slums. So there is 1,336 houses constructed with the physical infrastructure facilities in the colony.
And the next proposal is land pooling. So land pooling is, let's say there are 4 beneficiaries with 4 lands. Now, the problem on the government's end is paying for the land acquisition cost, and the problem in the beneficiaries' end is paying for the construction cost. Now, to stabilize these two, there is a technique called land pooling, where we take the land of the beneficiaries for free, but we will take a, even now that our land acquisition cost is 0, we will be taking up the construction cost of the house. And this table is just specifying as to the calculations as to how much will be the total cost of construction. If we take our Hanumantanagara, the total cost will come up to 1.69, taking for each household construction cost being 6 lakh. So land pooling, so by this technique, uh, on the government's hand, there is no land acquisition cost that they have to take, but the only cost that they will be taking is the construction cost. And on the beneficiary side, it is they are only giving their land at zero cost to the government, and they are taking the house at zero cost. So their house will be, the ownership is at zero cost, but they're only going to give their land to the government. So this is one of the techniques, and this has high scope for in situ slum redevelopment only, as the beneficiary already owns the land over there. So this is the final proposal. We'll be moving on to some policy level interventions that we have observed and is necessary for the project. I'd like one of the teammates to take over, please.
Yes. So the first policy level changes is schemes for subsets of poor. So there need to be a lot of convergence of policies and schemes into one scheme, because in PMAY it basically only focuses on developing a single dwelling unit for the beneficiaries. So it doesn't talk about the entire habitat plan, providing basic facilities and giving community centers, open space, parks as a habitat plan. So what should be done is there should be a convergence of different schemes into one scheme, and there should be a spatial development plan also, which is incorporated into such a scheme, so that the entire habitat will be developed, not only like an existing dwelling unit. And the second one is rental housing scheme for people who don't have land title and ownership. In government's land, they could build group housing, or else or G+4 housing, where based on a mutual agreement basis, affordable rents will be given to all the of various income groups of the urban poor. And economic zones and rehabilitation sites to uplift the dwellers from poor. Opportunities for employment and occupation needs to become a mandate in urban rehabilitation sites. So they shouldn't, like, when we have to consider, while rehabilitating an entire slum to another region, we have to think about their livelihoods also. So we have to relocate in such a place that there is in the nearby vicinity there's some economic activity, or inside the rehabilitation zone, I mean inside the redevelopment site, they need to provide some economic activities for the for the people who've been relocated. And operation and maintenance. So in all the rehabilitation projects, which is a colony or a
Sandhya, you're on mute.
so ma'am, can you hear now? Sorry.
Please continue, Evangeline.
Yes. Like, should I start from the, I don't know, where did I stop, ma'am?
No, you stopped in the third point. Economic zones and rehabilitation.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we need to provide economic zones in all the rehabilitation sites, because when we relocate an entire slum to another area, it is very important that it is close to the market, or it is close to any economic zone, because one of the major problems is that people should not the slum dwellers, the people who are living in that in rehabilitation locations, then need not to again give, they should not have any travel expenses and another pressure, because they don't have any social infrastructure, basically schools and healthcare facilities, which is far away from their rehabilitation sites. So that all the infrastructure facility should be close within the vicinity, and we have to provide some economic activities inside the site. So there should be some economic zone, so that people can have their own economic activities, small petty shops, or else or else like women, they can engage into like small micro like like
Entrepreneur.
entrepreneur, yeah, entrepreneurships like that. And another one is operation and maintenance. So in all the rehabilitation projects, operation and maintenance is a very important key factor, because when they are like for a gated community, or for when the people are rehabilitated to another center, after the construction, operation and maintenance is a major factor. So in one of the case studies that we saw is, people were rehabilitated, and they were like they were provided with lifts and other facilities. After some period of time, that is after 2 or 3 years, even after they had some problems in the services, or they had some problem in electricity supply and water supply, so there was no any proper operation, there was not proper maintenance of the same which happened. So what we can do is, there should be some maintenance association, or the take maintenance association, which will be among the beneficiaries, so that they would have that sense of belonging, and they would stabilize they would stabilize, and they would operate and maintain their own
Colony.
place where they relocated. That's all, ma'am.
So this brings us to the end of our presentation. If there are any questions, can we ask? Hello.
Yeah. So any questions, anybody? Then I'll take it. Can you just like I understand it's a really good work, but what is the reason why did they start doing this work? So the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is a central government scheme, and it's being implemented, and you have taken one particular site and studied it, right?
Yeah.
What made you do that? The answer is very simple, that your people have asked you to do it, but why are they doing it? What is the reason behind that?
Ma'am, this was one of the sites that we visited in Ramnagara, and we have attended one of the stakeholder meetings, and we seeing the troubles that the beneficiaries are going through, and seeing the troubles that the ULB on the other hand is going through. We thought we have to make a small presentation on what are the recommendations we as students can give with the guidance of our intern. Ma'am, is that would this answer the question, or is the question different, ma'am?
No, what I meant is, what is that HUDCO? You said Sangeeta ma'am and
Yes.
some other sir have helped you. So what is that they are doing about this whole project?
Okay, ma'am.
Are they taking an audit of whether the PMAY scheme is doing a good job or no? Or is it about, out of their interest, they are kind of understanding, is only a housing a problem, or the basic services also is a problem? So what is the reason, or what is the objective behind this entire study? I remember like Evangeline was showing one slide on methodology. So whose methodology it is?
Ma'am,
The first one or second slide. Yeah.
1 second, ma'am. Ma'am, this methodology was formed by us only.
Yeah, there.
This is
Second, yeah.
yeah. This methodology was formed by us only for this study of Ramnagara, that is Hanumantanagara slum. Whereas for PMAY, corely Sagita ma'am and Subramanian sir were involved in the Housing for All plan of action. So it was an initiative by them to monitor the processes of housing. Housing under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which involves the funding patterns, which involves the beneficiaries. It starts from the allotment or selection of beneficiaries to the allotment of houses or construction of houses. Sir and ma'am would take care. So they would monitor the process, and so they were majorly involved in bidding for survey agencies and collection of data, and analyzing what is the current scenario of every slum or every geographical area that they're targeting, as like the places where beneficiaries are located, and every geographical area that has houseless households. So they looked into such matters. If
Okay.
anybody could, if Sandhya or Harshini could
Yes,
add
ma'am.
on to my point.
Yes, ma'am. So basically, ma'am, they had taken like RGHCL, Rajiv Gandhi. They are the main state agency, like a nodal agency, who's taking this implementation of PMAY scheme. So under that, every state has to prepare housing for all plan of action. So when this scheme was started in 2015, so it was a mandate for all the states to prepare housing for all plan of action and submit it to the state so that they can process, and the funds will be released from central and state as well. So for Karnataka, in that case, all the other states, most of the states had already done the HFA APOA, that is Housing for All Plan of Action plans, and been submitted to the central and state government. But still, in Karnataka, it did not happen. So that's why 61 towns were chosen, and they had done this. So
Reports for each.
now, can you hear, ma'am?
HUDCO had got 61 towns in whole Karnataka, ma'am. So uh, uh, both Sangeeta ma'am and Subramaniam sir visited all the 61 towns, that is 9 district stakeholders, and to know the current scenario of the slum, like where the work is, what is the work done by the government till now, and what are the all problems they are facing, so that they could show the government these are our problems, and to implement some of the policy on those problems,
So
to
this is
solve those
basically
problems.
identifying the potential PMAY users. Can I say that?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And another one is like already the existing scheme has been done for till 2020. And what is the future? How much they have to still, even the budgeting also comes here, ma'am. They have something called annual
Yeah,
investment plan.
implemented.
So in that annual investment plans, they have a category, and this PMAY, it majorly focuses on slums, ma'am. They do budgeting for what is the financial requirement for the next 2 years. So for the 61 towns, they plan the budget. So how much the central and the state should fund for this project. So once the AIPs are done and submitted to the state government, then they would process that and they would analyze that, that is a CSMC. So the technical core team, they process it and they submit it to the central, and that's how uh, the next amount will be it will be released. So once that is released, ma'am, then the problem of the beneficiaries and the construction, that gap, then it will be solved, ma'am. So that's what they're doing.
Okay. So I'll take up the questions offline. Yeah, I'll leave it to the others.
Yes, ma'am.
No questions, anybody?
Okay, if there's no questions, can Rachna take over, please?
Yes, ma'am. Guys, thank you for your knowledge on people-centric approach and participatory planning and PMAY, and also your work on vertical development is understood in a great deal. And I would like to thank our HOD ma'am for being a part of this webinar. Thank you, ma'am. And I would like to thank all the faculties and students for being a part of this webinar and making it successful. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Have a nice day.
Thank you. May I request the speakers and the faculty to stay back for a minute? I just want to have a quick chat. Rest all can leave. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, should the recording continue?
Yeah, it can stay.
Kumar sir, do you want to leave? Kumar sir? Anit, I think you have the admin this thing. Can you please remove him?
Anit Chatra also.
So this tells me about the active participants. Okay, very good job, guys. The
Anit, you want
three
to remove him?
so basically the feedback with 2-3 points which I want to give upon is the storytelling. Okay, so when you started off, so the question should not have come, why are you doing this study? So even on behalf of, like, you have done a case study, you have presented it really good, the data. So apart from that, I need to, when I'm listening as an audience, like there are a lot of your classmates who don't know what is what. So even if, suppose when we are talking about, it's all about the storytelling, how you put the story in front of them. It need not be in the order of how you did a job. It's all about how you put it. Like a story will get connected to the other person very easily, right? And that's one thing which even after you guys explain, I am not clear till now why you have done what you have done. So I didn't understand why you did the case study. The case study, does it already have the PMAY part into it, or are you saying that this is an area where PMAY can look into? Okay, so that's one thing. And the slides, like if I go to slide number 9, okay, I'm just taking that as an example. It can be neatly presented. The presentation of each slide can be looked into really careful. And when you three people are talking, it was more unorganized. It's like randomly, can you talk kind of a thing. It's a nice thing as long as it's a panel discussion where we are talking of a topic and we want opinions of different people. But when it's like a clear cut number of slides and we are presenting it, I think we could be much more organized, where I present some portion of it and then the next person takes over and then the next person, or it can be any order. It's not about the order. Or is it like, okay, Nidhi is anchoring the show and she's calling upon Sandhya, she's calling upon Harshini to come back and talk, and then she tells us what is happening. That's a different thing. But here what's happening is you split the slides into different portions. So that's just a feedback, but really a very good job done. So
Thank you,
now
ma'am.
basically I want to understand. So we are doing Shravani ma'am, not Shravani, sorry, Anit ma'am and Alekhya ma'am. We are working on a PMAY project. That is
Yes, ma'am.
basically to take the audit of what is happening with the whole scheme of PMAY. Okay, so would you guys like to be part of it? First thing. And just think about it and tell Alekhya ma'am or Anit ma'am, Alekhya ma'am basically, on we would like to do some case studies of different stakeholders involved in the PMAY scheme. So which means to say, any project which is coming under the PMAY banner, we will talk, maybe not physically go there, or we will find out ways in which we can survey those. We can talk to the different stakeholders. A few questionnaires are prepared and we'll talk to them and get some data and we analyze that. So basically that's the job. Okay. Can I hear a yes or a no?
Okay,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's good. And so still, if I can get the answer, this Ramnagara is part already existing under the BMPMA banner, or is it a potential scheme?
Yes, ma'am. It has already been under the PMA. Actually, most of the construction in the Ramnagara slums have been completed. We have just reviewed the situation even after completion of construction. What is the scenario? It is not serving
Basically,
what
the
people
audit
actually need.
you guys
Yeah,
have done.
yeah. We have done a small, if not audit, we can call it a review, ma'am. What
Okay.
inputs can be given from us as students?
Nidhi, I actually wanted to ask you one question, but wherein I didn't want to cross about the policies that you were talking. So when you told this Ramanagara and most of the houses were slums and they had been under either beneficiary-led this thing or the other components, but do you have any personal idea why the in situ redevelopment was not done about these slums?
Yes, ma'am. Like
Most of the things is like they don't take up institute in Karnataka, especially institute redevelopment is like there's no much project with institute redevelopment is not taken, ma'am. Most of the beneficiaries they only come under BLC or else AHP. All the projects or else even the AHP projects are convert. Sorry, the BLC projects are converted into AHP, but still, institute slum redevelopment projects are not taken, ma'am. Maybe they are
Ma'am,
not.
Ma'am,
there is a
I know it is
there
not
is
taken, but I'm
yes,
asking you because you've gone to the ground and you're
yes,
telling it is being converted into BLC. Any
yes, ma'am.
particular reason of them being converted
Ma'am,
into
the
BLC? It is like
basic
they're economically.
one second,
particular
ma'am.
reason is the banking institution, they are not facilitating the amount loan for the people because they don't have any proof, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, the
When,
loan is the secondary problem, but the first problem is the in the in the in situ redevelopment. The problem that we learned in HUDCO was the most of the land titles were not theirs. It was a privately owned land, and even if the land was theirs, there was some dispute in the land, and that is why the government couldn't carry upon in situ redevelopment. That is where there was either relocation and rehabilitation, or they come under BLC with their own land titles and so on.
And I remember you mentioning there were people who had double houses under BLC and things like that. But
Ma'am,
yes,
PMAY
that
ma'am.
was
PMAY clearly mentions it should be the first house and it should be the only house.
yes,
So do
yes,
you know
ma'am.
what is the loop where people are using this for getting
Yeah,
the second house?
Ma'am, it's
yes,
actually
it's
not a
mostly
loop, ma'am. It is not a. It's not kind of a loop, ma'am. In PMAY, like the beneficiary, ma'am. In sense, for example, the same family, but there are two sons or something. The two sons they got married, so it is considered as a different family, ma'am. So if they have land with them, then they can do take BLC under the scheme.
Okay, so
Or
you
yes,
mean
yes.
if
it
there
is
are
technically,
three generation
And
people staying in one family, three houses they can apply for,
yeah, yeah.
considering
yes,
husband
ma'am.
wife as separate family.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
in
that's
some
one, ma'am.
cases, for the other schemes they have taken one houses, and for PMA schemes they have taken
Huh.
one houses.
Yes, ma'am,
So,
exactly, ma'am. So in
Yeah.
when JNNURM was introduced, they had taken one house, the same beneficiary. So when PMAY came, they took another house. It's like that, ma'am, of the same
Okay,
family.
now that you again reminded me of JNNRM and BSUP, which you had mentioned. So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
you all know, there were certain slum redevelopments which already happened in Bangalore under BSUP of JNNURM. So when the slum redevelopment could happen under JNNURM, why do you think it is not happening under ISSR? Because land being not legitimate, it cannot happen all over the state. There are some notified slums which belong to government land as well. So I'm not understanding the component. Is the funding not available? Does the government want to reduce the funds that they have to give 100% because BLC 50% will be given by the beneficiary and things like that? Is that the reason? Because you've gone to the ground, I'm asking you this question. So that what is KSDB's take on it? Because slum board it is, and they're not able to redevelop slums. They're only relocating or transferring it to the other uh, part or a component of the project. So what do you think has happened here? Because JNNRM was a successful slum redevelopment which already happened.
Ma'am, in most cases, the beneficiary will not be willing to give the land. That was one of the problems that were mentioned in our report as well, HFAPOA. So,
So in case
most
of slums, the beneficiary also will not have the ownership of the land, isn't?
in situ, ma'am. So that's why, as I mentioned, the slum usually when we contacted the Kolar the urban local body, they said most of the slums, whether notified or denotified, will have the disputes over land. The beneficiary might will not own the land, but whosoever's private land it is in dispute, and that's the reason why we have not taken over the construction over there.
And maybe another reason is, ma'am, because they give land for slum dwellers, like when they're relocated, they give the land ownership for that status for them. That is one of the things. That's why they don't want like in situ redevelopment. They don't want like higher G+1, G+2. They don't want that. They want the land also on their name and the house also. So that's why people like mostly go for others like AS. other projects, ma'am. Like they want the land titleship, ma'am. So that is one thing.
Okay, so you
In
say
slum.
instead of getting a flat, they are literally getting a plot, in the sense of plot plus
In a
house
plot, yeah,
construction.
exactly. That's what, ma'am. People, they want the land also, because obviously, ma'am, if even if a normal human being, he's like, if he wants, so obviously he would go for the land ownership also in his name
Yeah.
and the dwelling unit too.
Now,
Yeah.
when this is in the case, if you have taken the Indira Awas Yojana, which already had happened years back,
Yes, yes.
when lands were given, people started reselling them. So
Yes,
don't
so
you
in
think
this, yeah.
BLC and HP also, they are reselling it to others and
No,
making
no,
money?
No,
yes,
ma'am.
in this they can't, ma'am. In this, like 10 years, then the title, they won't give the title ownership, like they won't give the title deeds for the people who are availing BLC or AHP. It will be still under the government, and after that tenure, like after they stayed there for 10 or 20 years, and then only they give the title ownership. So still, they have to live over there. They have to live at least for 20 years. So that I think
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
then this won't be the question on that.
Okay, okay. That's all. If I have any, I will again call any one of you. Thank you.
Thank you all. By the way,
Thank you.
there's a message for me in the group which tells Glyn ma'am has wrote. I'm really happy to see the work of the students are doing, and even the way the content is put out and on the presentation, the thought process and their professionalism in their presentation is commendable. Okay, she wanted to convey this. She was on a call, it seems. Good job.
Thank you.
And cheers to the mentors too.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, chalo, have fun. Take care. Bye.
Good presentation.